The charges in his cases came about only after several of my political opponents in Congress instigated them to attack me and oppose my election. Then a carefully negotiated plea deal, agreed to by the Department of Justice, unraveled in the courtroom with a number of my political opponents in Congress taking credit for bringing political pressure on the process. No reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out only because he is my son, and that is wrong.
Today, we look at the controversy surrounding Hunter Biden's legal troubles and President Joe Biden's defense of his son, which has sparked a wave of intense criticism. While the president has claimed that the charges are a politically motivated attack, orchestrated by his opponents in Congress, critics have argued that the narrative conveniently ignores allegations of bias and leniency. Critics, including media figures like Megyn Kelly, have pointed to whistleblower testimony suggesting that Hunter Biden received special treatment due to his powerful family connections, with serious charges being deliberately ignored or dismissed. This dichotomy between allegations of political persecution and allegations of privilege has led many to question the fairness of the justice system and its ability to be influenced by politics. Watch this fascinating video.
The charges in his cases came about only after several of my political opponents in Congress instigated them to attack me and oppose my election. Then a carefully negotiated plea deal, agreed to by the Department of Justice, unraveled in the courtroom with a number of my political opponents in Congress taking credit for bringing political pressure on the process. No reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out only because he is my son, and that is wrong. Like the miscast of what actually happened here, that the charges only came about after several of my political opponents instigated them to attack me. No, he was shielded from those charges, which were serious felonies as outlined by those two IRS whistleblowers who since came forward. He was shielded by you because of his name and by others because of his name. And only when the whistleblowers came forward and it became very clear what had happened within the DOJ and the IRS was the DOJ forced to bring what was left of the charges because the vast majority of them had been intentionally allowed to expire.
Adding to the mounting criticism are revelations from IRS whistleblowers who have played a pivotal role in unraveling the Hunter Biden saga. These whistleblowers directly challenge President Biden's claims of unfair targeting, instead alleging that Hunter Biden benefited from extraordinary leniency. They argue that significant felonies were either deliberately ignored or mishandled, with key charges allowed to lapse as statutes of limitations conveniently expired under the DOJ's watch. These explosive allegations not only undermine the president's narrative, but also cast a shadow over the integrity of the justice system, sparking outrage over perceived double standards in the application of the law. Moreover, the whistleblowers have revealed a complex web of internal dynamics within the DOJ and IRS, suggesting that political considerations influence the handling of the case. They argue that such actions undermine not only the pursuit of justice, but also public trust in the fairness of federal agencies. This whistleblower testimony amplifies the broader discourse on whether powerful individuals receive preferential treatment, casting a spotlight on the institutional integrity of agencies tasked with upholding the law. Their revelations challenge the notion that the system is impartial, instead portraying it as susceptible to manipulation when politically sensitive cases arise.
Yeah, so however you look at this, there's a hole in the logic from Biden. So the first thing is, Biden's the president, he's in charge of the executive branch, Article 2. So are we saying that he instructed the DOJ to do this erroneously? Well, if not, then he's outsourced it, and then we have to believe that Merrick Garland is some rogue within the DOJ, which he seems not to be. I doubt Biden would agree with that. And then you get to the second option, which is that the DOJ is part of the deep state, which is something that the Bidens of the world say doesn't exist. And if this is what the DOJ does because of political pressure from television and Congress and the dastardly Republican Party, then surely Donald Trump has a point about the nature of the bureaucracy. But I don't think that they would concede that. Then you've got the question that arises, if neither of those is true, then ought we to have the laws under which Biden, Hunter Biden, that is, was prosecuted? And one thing I keep hearing today from anyone who is defending this or half defending this is, well, we don't prosecute people who lie on Form 4473, which is a form that was created subsequent to the Gun Control Act of 1968, that asks various questions. Are you a felon? Are you a citizen? Are you addicted to illegal substances? And so forth.
The case raises ethical concerns about how justice is administered when political considerations are at play. If political pressure influenced the handling of Hunter Biden's case, it sets a dangerous precedent that erodes confidence in the impartiality of federal institutions. There are also ethical questions surrounding the president's defense of his son, which some see as prioritizing personal interests over the integrity of the legal process. In essence, the Hunter Biden case has become a flashpoint for discussions about equity in the legal system, raising urgent questions about whether the law is truly blind or if it can be swayed by power and privilege. This debate goes beyond one individual, striking at the heart of public confidence in American justice and governance.
Right, but what I hear from Joe Biden is actually the opposite rhetoric. So what you will hear now is, on the one hand, that the biggest problem that the United States faces in its tax system is people who cheat, people who don't pay the taxes they're owed, wealthy people who, instead of putting money into the treasury, go out and spend it frivolously. For example, let's just say on sports cars and strippers, which Hunter seems to have done, which is why I'm told we need 87,000 new IRS agents. We need to beef up audits and so on and so forth. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, we've got guns too. The problem with the United States at the moment in that realm is that we don't have enough gun laws and we don't enforce them properly. We have an under-regulation issue in America, and this is a huge problem, right? On this piece of paper that Joe Biden put out yesterday, though, it says that no one would have gone after anyone for these sorts of crimes unless they were called Hunter Biden. So which is it? Do we have a problem with rich tax cheats who are not caught by the system and a total lack of enforcement of those who are not supposed to own guns, owning guns? Or is it the case that the only people who would ever be prosecuted for this stuff, even when the evidence is overwhelming as it was in this case, are Hunter Biden because of his political connections? You've got to pick one. And it's another aspect of this that I just find so irritating, is that basically Joe Biden's position is we need to go after people who illegally purchase firearms, who are not allowed to own firearms, and we need to go after wealthy tax cheats unless they're called Hunter Biden. I mean, it's just, there's no way of getting around it.
Yeah. No, you think about all the people who are being prosecuted right now for being tax cheats and how they're feeling today. That I guess if I stole more, if I cheated even worse, maybe I could get the Hunter Biden exception because, I'm told by the president of the United States that those who are late paying our taxes because of serious addictions, but then pay them back subsequently with interest and penalties, are typically given non-criminal resolutions. Well, what if you're one of the ones who wasn't given that and you're looking at this statement today? Or what if you're one of the ones who was prosecuted under this gun form and you have a very different result than Hunter Biden?
The controversy surrounding Hunter Biden has sparked widespread calls for a significant policy reform to address perceived inequities in the enforcement of laws governing tax evasion, gun control, and foreign agent registration. Critics argue that the leniency allegedly afforded to Hunter Biden exposes systemic flaws in the justice system, fueling public distrust in its impartiality. To restore faith in the rule of law, many advocate for clear and consistent enforcement mechanisms that apply equally to all individuals, regardless of political or financial influence. This includes strengthening oversight within agencies like the IRS to prevent selective enforcement, implementing stricter timelines to avoid statutes of limitations expiring, and enhancing whistleblower protections to encourage transparency. In the realm of gun control, there is a push for uniform penalties for violations, such as lying on firearm purchase forms or illegal possession, while reevaluating the effectiveness of existing laws to ensure fairness and deterrence. The case has also highlighted weaknesses in enforcing the Foreign Agent Registration Act, prompting calls for tighter monitoring of foreign business dealings and clearer penalties for non-compliance. Beyond legal adjustments, critics emphasize the need for institutional safeguards to eliminate political interference in prosecutorial decisions, including the establishment of independent oversight bodies and greater transparency in high-profile cases. Collectively, these reforms aim not only to prevent future controversies, but also to reinforce the principle that no one is above the law, ensuring accountability and rebuilding public trust in American legal institutions.
And of course, Rich, now what we're hearing is, well, Trump pardoned Jared Kushner's dad and just made him ambassador to France. And Bill Clinton pardoned his half-brother, step-brother, over drug charges. But both of those guys had served their sentence. They had paid the penalty that a jury had inflicted on them and had lived up to what, the DOJ required of them, which was sit for a trial, listen to what a jury finds, and then serve the sentence. That's not what's happened here.
Yeah, so it's not just that he's not going to serve the sentence, as NR's Andy McCarthy has pointed out, the timing here, which is a little weird. Sunday and a holiday weekend, okay, maybe that makes sense. You want to bury the news. But you would have thought he'd waited right to the end of his administration. Instead, why is he doing it now? Because he doesn't want sentencing to happen, which is when, you know this better than I do, but that's when the felony is actually recorded, right? When you technically become a convicted felon. So this stops him from being a convicted felon. So not just not getting sentenced or going to jail, but he won't actually be a felon for these crimes. And it wasn't just that on the gun charge, right, that he lied on the form and then he safely put the gun in a safe and that was it. There was this turmoil in his life. And I guess what his girlfriend or his wife at the time was worried he's going to do harm to himself with the gun and dumps it in a trash can on the school grounds or near school grounds. So there's a major aggravating factor there. And you also hit on a key point just a moment ago. It's not just that Biden's political opponents were on this. James Comer was a political opponent. I think he did great work, and just because he's a political opponent doesn't mean he wasn't on to something or it wasn't legitimate. But there are whistleblowers. They really forced this. And if there's anything we've known from the media and from Hollywood, whistleblowers are good, right? They uncover wrongdoing. They should be honored for their bravery. But in this case, they've been disappeared. But they were a key aspect to getting this case moving because they were so appalled by what they were seeing because they knew it was special treatment of someone who had a political connection.
Defenders of Hunter Biden's situation often draw parallels to past presidential pardons, citing examples like Donald Trump's pardon of Jared Kushner's father and Bill Clinton's pardon of his stepbrother. These comparisons are used to argue that presidential intervention in legal matters involving close connections is not unprecedented. However, critics contend that such comparisons fail to account for significant differences. Notably, individuals like Jared Kushner's father and Clinton's stepbrother served their sentences before receiving pardons, adhering to the traditional legal process and its consequences. In contrast, Hunter Biden's case has sparked outrage because his alleged leniency bypasses these established norms, with significant charges either dropped or allowed to expire before reaching a verdict. This disparity has fueled accusations of preferential treatment, reinforcing the perception that the justice system applies different standards for politically connected individuals. Critics argue that this case undermines the credibility of the legal system and sets a troubling precedent, contrasting sharply with past pardons where due process was more clearly observed. This is one of the most popular topics in the US today, and we want to hear from you. Please contribute by commenting below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to watch new videos every day. Thank you for your interest.